So, I've been pretty obsessively playing Path of Exile 2 since the new update dropped last week. As you may have seen in my prior video, I'm like waking up at 3 a.m. for this game. This latest season, titled The Third Edict, has been an absolute blast thus far. Like, I've been having a great time and will likely continue playing through the rest of this month, in between whatever other games that I want to check out, which there's actually a fair few. It's kind of a busy month. Yeah, so I've been playing a lot of Path of Exile 2, suffice it to say, right? Proof is in the pudding. So when they reached out asking for a sponsor video where I talk even more about the game, yeah, that's a no-brainer. This has easily been my most played ARPG in recent years. I'm just obsessed. So yeah, let's talk some more about it. Why not? Now, last video, I basically did an overview of my recent revisit. Like, I was recapping what I had done from day to day, also giving my general thoughts, the pros and the cons. I realized, though, I didn't really much dive into the details or specifics about what is the new stuff. So why don't we do that today? I'll cover some of the new content and additions, as well as the changes that came with Season 3. I also thought this could be a good time to kind of take a look ahead at what we still have to look forward to coming to the game, at least what we know or are suspecting up until this point. All right, so let's start off with the Season 3 changes. Patch 0.3, the Third Edict, added the following new content. So Act 4, set in an island archipelago. This act consists of a lot of seaside-themed areas and zones. It's also a non-linear addition to the campaign. You first arrive in the coastal city of Kingsmarch, and then from there you take a boat out to whichever of the islands you want to visit first. Some of the locations you'll see are the Isle of Kin, which is this volcanic area with hot springs and sulfur pools. There is Erastus, a seaside village with a Mediterranean feel and an excavation site where they're digging up something they probably shouldn't be. Shrike Island is this rather small island with a lot of craggy rocks and inhabited by lots of birds and bird adjacent creatures. Kedge Bay is rather dreary with shipwrecks, bloated zombies, and skeletons. Wakapanu Island has more of a jungly vibe, and it's also got the Singing Caverns where you'll find jellyfish, various aquatic creatures, and sirens. And then the Abandoned Prison, probably one of my favorite zones. This is an island prison, and beyond containing various undead prisoners and other creatures, it's also got this ever-present tide that flows in and out consistently, physically restricting your movement. It's really such a cool addition. Really, really, really like it. The act includes 100 new monster types and 12 new bosses. Some highlights for me included the shark boss, a sea captain, and the prisoner, and also the location for the next Ascendancy trial, the Trial of Ancestors, located deep in the Halls of the Dead. This also one of my favorite areas. Really cool environmental setting with these like spiritualistic totems with their glowing eyes, some interesting enemy encounters and fights, and also probably a really, really neat boss fight against like this monkey boss. Also, it's rather chunky, the whole thing. This act in total took me about 6 hours to clear everything, and that's on top of the other 3 acts, and then the following things, which are the interludes. These are essentially temporary mini acts that act as a placeholder until the final 2 acts have been added to the game at some point in the future updates. These take between 1 to 2 hours each to complete, with every one of the interludes having a handful of zones, quest, and boss encounters. Interlude 1 is the Curse of Holton. This takes us back to Ogrim Village in Act 1. Interlude 2 is the Stolen Barya, which takes place in the Vastiri Desert. And then Interlude 3, Doriani's Contingency, brings us finally into a new biome where we'll be exploring through these snow-capped mountains and icy caverns. There's also a few new different permanent buffs and additional skill points to unlock while you're playing through these interlude chapters. So with the addition of Chapter 4 and the interludes, the cruel difficulty, the cruel acts have been removed. In prior updates, you would play through chapters 1 through 3, and then you would play through chapters 1 through 3 a second time on the harder difficulty of cruel. That is no longer the case. You've got 1 through 3, then 4, and then now these 3 temporary interludes, eventually to be replaced by chapters 5 and 6. We saw some mechanics changes as well as the addition of new mechanics. First of all, there's sprinting, which is a new baseline ability. Everybody has access to it. So you hold down dodge roll, and that will, after the dodge, have you sprinting, moving at a faster speed. Now, there's no limitations to this, as in there isn't a stamina bar that drains or anything. You can do it for as long as you want. However, if you get hit too many times while sprinting, or seemingly if you get hit at all, you will be knocked down for a rather extended period of time, which has led to some frustrating deaths for many people. You can really avoid this a lot of the time as long as you either dodge roll in a different direction, or just dodge roll in any direction if you're about to get hit, or just start casting a spell. Both of those will instantly cancel the sprint animation and then no longer leave you susceptible to getting knocked down. But yes, if you are in the sprint animation and you get hit, you're going to be knocked on your butt, and it's probably not going to go well. Like, if there's anything beyond 1 or 2 white mobs, it's probably going to kill you. For mechanics changes, we see that weapon swapping is now instant with no longer having an animation. This is going to allow for a lot more flexibility and also removing some of the clunkiness that came with trying to tying skills to weapon swapping. A bunch of new skills, gems, and notables, new active and passive skills, as well as the fact that support gems got an overhaul. They now actually come in tiers. They get progressively better. Usually, there's a lot of abilities that actually you'll have, like, the first tier is whatever improvement, say it's like increased attack speed. The second tier is a little bit better, but then the third tier also comes with a drawback. There's a lot of 3-tiered support gems where the first 1 and 2 are just positive, and the third one also has positive, but then some negative associated with it. So you got to pay attention. Don't always just upgrade straight to tier 3 on any of the 3-tier support gems. Really take a close look at them, because some of them do come with some pretty dramatic drawbacks, and it's really your choice if you want to deal with that to get the perk as well. We also now have lineage supports. These are unique support gems that come with some rather significant skill modifications on them. 40 of these have been added, and 100 new notables in the passive skill tree, opening up many new options and a variety for pretty much every single build. There's just new perks all over the tree that you can pick from in whatever build you're happening to go with. Balance tuning, they made some changes to encourage more comboing of skills over one skill spamming, but then of course the strongest builds right now consist of I am seeing a lot of strong builds that do involve some comboing, but ultimately a lot of players will gravitate towards the strongest version of one skill spamming they can possibly find. They also did a bunch of buffs to various defensive stats like evasion, armor, parrying, and blocking, and we now have the addition of a new defensive stat that goes by the name of deflection. This update also came with a brand new league mechanic, the first official league mechanic called Rise of the Abyssal. You've got these pits that form on maps, any maps that you're doing. It can happen in the campaign, but also of course during endgame mapping. And these pits are kind of made up of these ravines stretching in different directions, and they will spew out enemies. You kill the enemies and it closes up towards the center pit area. Killing enough of those will eventually cause a ton of enemies to erupt from that pit while also summoning an abyssal. And these are rather strong, rare, or bosses. I don't know what they're classified as, but they are rather strong enemies. They come with this like hand-clapping laser beam of doom. Really bursty, heavy hitting. Definitely died a few times to them. I like it though. I do like the difficulty. Also, you can get quite a large number of enemies added to your maps if you happen to have one of these abyssals on it. Killing that enough will close the fissures, and most of the time that's going to spawn some sort of a chest that comes in different rarities. You know, you get loot from it, but also occasionally it's going to open up a hole into the abyss. Jumping in here grants you access to the subterranean cavern full of abyssal enemies with some great loot drops, along with the addition of these new crafting currencies. So these let you imbue an item with a hidden affix. Then traveling to the Well of Souls, you toss that item in and it's going to reveal 3 different options for you to pick from. This gives you just a lot more choice and options when it comes to gear crafting, especially with the addition of an item that lets you re-roll. If you don't happen to like the 3 that you got, you can roll for another 3. I've made some really good pieces of gear just using the new materials from the Abyssal update. Mapping got some updates as well. There are now 25 new endgame maps with new locations, monsters, and bosses from Act 4, as well as the 3 interludes added to the Atlas map pool. Also, there are more locked map nodes that you can discover. You're going to see these as you travel around. They tend to require you to explore the nearby nodes around whatever the locked node is, looking for some whatever key, switch, lever, or object you interact with that then lifts the lock, granting access to the map. These include things like maelstroms found in the water biomes or the vol vaults in the mountain biomes. Crafting changes in addition to those that came with the new league mechanic. Crafting is just way more viable and more towards the deterministic end. You have just a lot more options and choices to make good gear here, with them adding many tiers to the crafting resources. The higher the tier of the resource, the higher the roll that you are going to get when you apply it to an item. But also with the essences in their multiple tiers, you can guarantee a high roll of a specific affix for certain items. It is fantastic. Like I can guarantee a high tier roll of like added lightning damage to my bows, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So yes, crafting is just way more viable. You're more likely to actually get some good gear via crafting. It's less completely random. Also, exceptional bases of items can now drop. Now these will only drop as white, so they're not gonna have any affixes on them, but they can have up to 30% added quality, which is 10% higher than the baseline of 20, or they can come with an additional socket on the item. These make them perfect for crafting super juiced up pieces of gear. Best in slot stuff, I assume, is gonna be a lot of exceptional bases that were crafted into the perfect affixes that people are looking for in the highest tiers possible. Asynchronous trading finally in the game. No more needing to tab out and constantly check on the trade website on your browser if you're looking to buy or sell items. They have added in-game trading that doesn't require you interacting with, whispering, or manually trading with other players. So you search for what you want in game. There's a lot of different options to look for exactly the thing that you're looking for. If you find an item you like, you click on a button where you are then instantly transported to that player's hideout. You're gonna be right there with their shop open and the item that you selected highlighted. You just drag that to your inventory. It automatically takes out the currency that it was being sold for, and that's it. Transaction complete. You can head home. You have the item. No haggling, no whispering back and forth, no waiting for them to trade or accept your trade, or no trying to dupe you by giving you a different kind of currency and hoping you don't notice. None of that. It's all gone. As for selling, you post the item, select the price that you want, and then it's just there. If somebody buys it, you will have those earnings waiting for you in a tab the next time you go back to your hideout. Now the NPC, it's an NPC that manages all of this buying and selling stuff. Agni is unlocked in Act 4 after a few quests. You're going to find her in King's March, and then speaking with her will then have her in your hideout from there on forward. So that is all the stuff, most of it anyways, added to the base game. There's some more nuance and specifics and new items and stuff added, but that's the big bullet point list really. And this has added even more hours to the already over 400 hours that I've played of Path of Exile 2. As far as I'm concerned, the game just keeps getting better and better. There's certainly room for improvement, as always, but overall, I think it's great already. I do want to give you a quick recap of the pros and cons, my thoughts of this update from last video in case you didn't see that. Starting with the pros, I think the new act as well as the interludes are just fantastic. Like, absolutely love it. Specifically, Act 4 is probably my favorite act in the game thus far. I love the setting and the environment. I love the island theming with these various seaside villages and towns, also this new shamanistic tribe that was added to the game, and their spiritual temples, all really cool, great looking locations that were fun to explore. Bunch of new interesting boss fights. Obviously, all those new enemies in addition to the bosses are nice, more variety here. And I also enjoyed the freedom of choice where we can kind of go to the islands that we want. There is like sort of a suggested order because there are levels to the islands, right? And so there are some that when you reach them, they're going to be closer to your level, ones that'll be a little bit higher, but in general, you can just go wherever you want. And it's kind of a free form, like, hey, we got to find these map pieces and these weapons, head out to the islands. You're going to eventually visit all of them and find all this stuff and then bring it back to us, which then progresses you to the end of the act scenario where you're going to a specific area. Cool new areas in the interludes as well, even though they revisit prior zones of Acts 1 and 2. Generally, the new inclusion of the snowy, mountainy region is really nice as well. And there's also some like new locations inside of those pre-existing areas. Also, just not playing through Cruel again, not having to play through the first 3 acts twice on every character. That's just nice as well. I do really enjoy the new league mechanic, Abyss. Nice addition. I like how it's all over the place. You're just going to come across it pretty much every time you're going through mapping, and most every map you're going to see an abyss or two, sometimes many more than that. And I like the whole mechanic. I like the addition and new stuff that add to crafting as well. I like sprint. I think it feels pretty amazing. Some people aren't so thrilled about it, but honestly, I've really enjoyed having this as a mechanic for my character, especially any slower moving characters that I make, because right now I'm playing a very fast character, but in the future when I'm playing like a minion witch or something, they're generally really slow, so it's going to be nice to have the sprint to speed up lulls in between while mapping. I think the new trade is a fantastic, just great addition, a lot more streamlined than using the website, and when I'm playing a game, I want to be in the game and not tabbed out of the game, so I'm glad it's in here. And then also, it's already a good game, I like it, and they just keep adding more of it, and while there are some rough edges here and there, and things every season that like aren't so great. Generally speaking, it's a great game that just keeps getting added onto, so I appreciate that. As for those cons, well, class balance is a bit all over the place. It seems like Deadeye is the clear leader, at least for the League starter. We'll see when it comes to like the fastest clearing endgame mapping characters. That might very well change, but right now Deadeye is undoubtedly exceptionally strong and exceptionally powerful at the very beginning of the League. Now, once we get into the higher tiers of gear and people get more passive points in their trees and the different builds start to come online, that may very well change, but Deadeye is a clear leagues ahead right now. Been getting a lot of hard freezes. That's not great. Really, it's just consistently happening. Now, somebody told me that I can switch my renderer from DX12 to Vulkan, and that should make a difference. Whatever it is, I feel like they should fix it so that it'll work. I shouldn't be dealing with like constant freezes where the screen freezes up and then the gears start turning, and then I have to hit escape to make sure that the gears don't stop turning and I die before I'm paying attention or before I can even see, which can happen a few times. Some people don't like the sprint, so I'll mention that in the con. Again, I think it's a great addition, but I think it's the implementation that some people have a problem with. I think especially the punishing of like getting knocked down if you just get hit like a couple of times and then basically being guaranteed dead if there's any exceptional amounts of damage around you. People don't love that experience. So maybe they can tighten it up a little bit, or maybe just remove the fact that you fall on your ass for 10 straight seconds if you get hit. And then some of the usual stuff when it comes to new content being added to the game, like there are some buggy maps. I got stuck under the terrain a few times. There have been some buggy, unkillable enemies, things just not working properly, which we assume they're going to sort out over time, but are worth mentioning right now. And also, I wish trade was unlocked sooner. I think it's a great addition to be in the game, but the fact that it doesn't come until some way into Act 4 means that it's many hours before people have access to it. I just think get it at the end of Act 1 or at Act 2, introduce us to Agni then, so that we can at least sell stuff. Like, I had lots of stuff that I think other players would have loved to use in the early phase of leveling, would have been happy to sell them to them for whatever, you know, an Exalt or anything, but it just wasn't an option until, again, partway through Act 4, so wish that came a little bit sooner. So that is what we have right now, but let's talk a bit about the future. At the moment, there are 7 classes in the game to choose from. Of course, as you know, each has this primary attribute focus and starting position in the passive tree, tending to be focused on certain attributes and a weapon type. So like the warrior is strength and maces, the ranger is dex and bows, the mercenary is dex and strength with crossbows, monk is dex and int with quarterstaff, sorceress is int elemental, the witch is int occult, and then the huntress, the most recent new class addition, is dexterity with spears. That's what is available at the moment, but we do already know the next planned class coming to the game, and that is the long-awaited for druid. Druid is going to be a strength and int class with the primal weapon. Now, in human form, the druid is a caster that controls the elements, but also the druid can shapeshift into various wild beasts. The one that we've seen the most of thus far is the bear form. In bear form, it's got the rage mechanic. Mauling will build up your rage, and then you've got various spenders that you can use it on. They've got this cool system where the higher your rage, the brighter the runes on the bear's back, which is neat. Certain skills like rampage will consume rage. This one in particular has you charging forward, mowing things down in your path. The more rage you have, the longer that charge lasts and the further you travel. Some other abilities and interactions from the bear include Furious Slam that creates these earthquakes by slamming on the ground, or Seismic Cry that pushes enemies back and has a stun chance to it. Heavily stunned enemies near any war cry actually cause the next slam to cast twice, which is cool. The druid can also have companions, summon various animals to join your side. Wolves will keep enemies away. They also have a howl that puts a debuff on enemies. And then in human form, you got things like the ability to call in tornadoes, place a volcano on the ground that shoots out projectiles, and then that can be combined with the bear slam to shoot more projectiles out of the volcanoes because you're causing like a rumbling of the earth. And there will also evidently be different skill trees for the human and shapeshifting forms that you can branch into. So again, a lot of people have been really waiting for Druid for a long time. They've been teasing it. They've showed plenty of gameplay already. Apparently they're continuing to work on the animation side of thing before they feel comfortable releasing it. But that's not all. We already know about the 4 additional classes we're still waiting on. We've got the Marauder, focused on strength, which will introduce axes to the game. Templar, I'm really excited for. This is strength int, which will add the flail to the game. And then there is the Assassin, also known as the Shadow. This is dex int with daggers. And finally, the Gladiator, or the Duelist, is strength dex, which will be adding swords. I know people have been losing their mind over the fact that we've got this hack and slash ARPG and there are no swords in the game. Literally, there's no swords. You've never seen a sword drop. You've never picked up a sword before. Swords are not in the game, and any of these weapons, the axe, the flail, the dagger, and the sword, as well as, what is it that's coming with the druid? The primal, whatever that is, some offhand, main hand thing, whatever. All of those weapons, those coincide with the addition of these classes, and that is still something that we're waiting on. And all of those weapons, of course, it's not just a different stick that you hold, it's also coming with the addition of all of the corresponding skill gems, which of course it means a bunch of new abilities added to the game that players can pick and choose from no matter what their starting class is, because that's kind of the freedom that they kind of lean into with Path of Exile. Also, in addition to new classes come new ascendancies. Not only are each of the remaining classes going to have their own 3 ascendancies, but the current classes in the game that we have access to, each will be getting 1 additional ascendancy that is not yet in the game. So those are the upcoming classes, weapons, and skills that we're still expecting, but there's also new content. So we're going to be getting some new acts. We just got the 4th act here with this most recent update, along with those interludes that are placeholders for what will eventually be a new Act 5 and 6 that are still to come. Now, one of those 2 is certainly bound to be the snowy/mountainous region that we see in that 3rd interlude, as well as the maps biomes. Also expected will be some 4th ascendancy trial, bound to be tied to one of the 2 remaining acts. We do have the 3rd ascendancy trial, the one that I mentioned before, although actually getting your ascendancy points from that isn't currently available. You can just play through the trial as part of the quest, but getting the ascendancy points are still tied to the trial of Sekimas, as well as the whatever the other one, you know the 2. Now, as we covered, we just got our first new league mechanic added to the game with this abyssal content, but this isn't the only new event type that is going to be coming to maps. We're going to be getting new stuff as well in the future, expecting new areas and enemy types, new events and challenges, new boss encounters, additional crafting options and gear acquisition, and occasionally a continuation of the game's story. So some Path of Exile leagues, like the first game, also introduce entirely new systems and mechanics, such as the town management that came with a prior PoE 2 league, and that's some stuff that we could also be getting in PoE 2 at some point. And then there's the end game. This is going to be a big focus for the future. As you know, currently the end game is all about mapping. We're moving through the atlas from node to node, clearing towers, and then juicing maps to get maximum loot and currency drops, get richer, or get the items that we want. In the maps themselves, beyond like the enemies, the normals, and the rares, and the bosses, we also have these different sorts of events that can pop up. Like there's ritual, where you interact with an altar and then fight waves of enemies. You got a pool of loot to pick from the ritual in the center. Delirium has you fighting as many monsters as fast as possible to build up the meter. You can also spawn a boss doing this. There's Breach, where you open up this hand that has this expanding breach and you fight large amounts of enemies in that ever-expanding ring. Used to be more enemies, but Breach was a bit overtuned, so they dialed it back to be more in line with other stuff now. Of course, Expedition, where you have to excavate by placing down these explosives. You fight the enemies that pop out, you collect your rewards. And then there's bossing, where some maps will contain a boss encounter in a specific arena in that map for you to fight. So doing the mapping and coming across those events are what consist of the endgame right now, but there's plenty of other additional endgame activities found in PoE 1, some of which we are expecting to make their way into PoE 2's endgame rotation. These include things like the Heist, where you're stealing rare artifacts that help with your rogue companions. Labyrinth, a dungeon filled with traps that enables you to farm stronger enchantments for your items. Delve is this infinitely generated endgame dungeon that gets progressively harder with increasing rewards. There's Simulacrum, these 30 wave encounters with monsters and bosses to kill. And then Uber Blight, a tower defense minigame that was incorporated into Path of Exile. Now, for full disclosure, I have not spent a lot of time with Path of Exile 1. I played it basically during its initial early access launch, which was like 10 or 11 years ago. I don't know, a long, long time ago. So I'm not intimately familiar with any of this stuff. These are just like the brief synopsis of these endgame activities that I read online. But please be sure to clarify anything that I got wrong or that I'm missing in the comments below. And I think that just about does it for our overview of the most recent content added here with Season 3 of this early access game that I've just been obsessed with. When did it come out? Like last December? I mean, again, nowadays I don't sink 400, 500 plus hours into many games. I've kind of more been in the position in recent years of I like to try to play a lot of different games and check out different things, especially with some some of my favorite genres being, you know, survival games, ARPGs, and MMOs, games that take a lot of time. I'm kind of more interested in spreading out and getting more variety in here. So it just kind of speaks for itself when I get a game that I stick with this consistently for such a short period of time. I know there's people out there who have thousands of hours in PoE2, but again, I play a lot of different games because that's what interests me and that's what I do for coverage here on this channel. So point being, it's been a while since I've played this much of one game in under a year. Rather than just spending that time on other stuff. So yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying Path of Exile 2. I love what it's given me so far in terms of entertainment. This season has been a nice update, and I'm so looking forward to many of the stuff there on that list, and also whatever else we don't know about that's still to come in the future. That just about does it for today's video, though. If you guys like what you saw, links available below, as if you don't already know about PoE2 watching my channel. You can check out more from it there, but that's it for now. Thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.